Well, good day. Welcome back to the Higher Grounds podcast. Thank you for joining us today. And as you can see around the table, things are a little bit different. Matthew has changed. He's lost a lot of weight. And
Gotten taller.
Better
looking.
Man, better looking.
Well, I don't know about that.
That's right. But we're here today with Brother Travis Howard, Brother Joshua Montgomery, and we're going to talk about a subject that I don't think I've ever heard covered on a podcast, but I think it would be interesting for pastors to listen to this particular topic, and as we deal with it, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. But how are you doing?
Doing well, sir. Hope you are.
Everything going well over to the safe
Safe
place?
Harbor.
Yeah,
the Safe Harbor, safe place. Yeah,
safe
Safe
place.
Harbor Baptist Church of Salisbury. We're doing well.
You've been there 10 years.
Celebrating 10 years. Yes,
That's
sir.
hard to believe.
I went at age 21, right after me and Brother Travis met. I think I preached for you in October, and me and Grace had just got married. And the next month, I went as interim pastor. We didn't have a kitchen table. That's all he remembers. We didn't have a kitchen table at the time.
Did y'all do bean bags in the living room? Is that what you did?
No,
I think he said a cardboard box or something.
That's what we were living in.
So, what kind of church was Safe Harbor to take you as a 21-year-old, wet behind the ears, really baby-faced kid at that time?
Crazy.
Yeah.
I told him the other night, I said, it had to be God. I said, because for y'all to call a 21-year-old preacher, and then for me at 21 to take a church, it had to be God that worked. I look back at some of those sermons and those outlines that I preached.
Yeah.
Yeah. God didn't give me that.
You wouldn't preach them again?
No. I would choke somebody if they preached that in my direction. But God had a lot of grace and a lot of mercy on us.
So this will answer the question of how bad it really was. How many folks did you start with? Do you still have?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably still have about 10 or 12 that are still with me.
Yeah.
Some have died. We went home to be with the Lord.
Preached them to death, did you?
Yeah. Some went home to be with the Lord, and then some have been to other places.
Yeah. Stood against the man of God and God killed him. Is that what it was?
No, I don't really.
Yeah,
I don't think that
you're not
happened.
going that direction, huh?
I don't think anybody done that.
Well,
I mean, it stood against me, but I don't think God's killed any of them.
Yeah.
Yet.
We're praying, though.
we're still praying. No, we had about 10, 12 still with me. What was a real blessing is the former pastor's mom and dad. Brother Larry was his dad. He just passed away in May of 2021, May of 22. And his wife, Miss Janice, is still with me. They've been with me the whole time, been my biggest supporters. Amen. And a great blessing. And
now, where did he move on to?
He moved to heaven.
So he passed.
Yes.
Yeah. The former pastor.
Yes.
Well, I'll be. Is that why the church was vacant of a pastor?
Yes, sir. Brother Rick Perry was the former pastor.
Okay.
And he got cancer age 51. And I had preached for him in youth meetings before. And when he got cancer and then the chemotherapy, it was not uncommon. Like if he had chemo on Thursday, to be out of the pulpit on Sunday. So I would fill in for him some. And then in November of 2012, he called me and asked if I would come and be supply pastor and assistant pastor. That way he wouldn't have to worry about filling the pulpit. If he was there, he would preach. If he was not there, I would fill the pulpit. And so I prayed about it, agreed to. I preached for him on Wednesday night. He went to heaven on Thursday.
I got you.
So I worked for him for one day. And
so JL would have been his uncle.
JL be his uncle. And Brother Larry, who just passed away, that's JL's brother.
I got
Brother
you.
Larry, yes, sir.
I'll never forget, I was out in Wyoming. I was in Wyoming.
Sure.
Deer hunting. And or Nebraska one. Maybe I was in Nebraska deer hunting. And so we were staying in Wyoming, hunting Nebraska, and then we went to Montana on a Saturday night so we could preach in a church up there, one of our church plants of Montana on Sunday morning. So Sunday morning after service, we made the drive back to Wyoming and stopped in there at JL's. And so when we got there to, what town was he in there in Wyoming?
Was he in Gillette?
No, it wasn't Gillette, but I'll think of it here in a minute. But anyway, we stopped in there, and JL asked me to preach. And if you ever knew J.L. Perry, he could talk ears off a statue. I mean, he could talk now, buddy. I mean, J.L. could talk. And so, did you ever know him?
I did.
So we were come in. He said, "Who are you?" And I told him, and he said, "I want you to preach for me tonight." And I said, "Well, I didn't come for that," but he said, "I do. I want you to preach." I said, "Okay." So we got service going, and he talked and talked and talked, and then had some singing, and then he talked and talked some more, and then come time for preaching. And he said, "Well, we got a guest preacher with us here tonight." So he got Brother Andy Wells here with us, and your dad is who? Larry. I met Larry Wells, and he went into the thing, And he said, now he comes out of the Galilee Baptist Church. How long you been there, Pastor? I've been there so many years. He said, so let me tell you how this church got started. So we went into the long discourse how that got started. So 45 minutes later,
Then he wants you to preach.
I got in the pulpit.
Wow.
And I was looking at them poor people. I said, this is going to be about 15 minutes, and we go in the house. So, and we did that.
Yeah, I met Brother
he preached.
JL at his brother's.
He could talk.
Oh yeah, I met him at his brother's view, and Brother JL's health has really got bad.
He's passed now, isn't he?
No, JL's still alive.
I thought he had passed.
No, JL's still living. Yeah,
but I mean, he is an old man.
he is. He's not in good health.
Yeah,
and
but he's faithfully served the Lord.
he has for many years.
Many
Yes, sir.
years.
And his health is not.
Does he live in your area?
He does live in my area. Yes, sir.
I'll be.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be.
And
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you did you ever go to that church in Wyoming?
no, sir. I never got out there. I've heard many stories.
One of the most beautiful places in the world. Beautiful. This church building was flat, gorgeous, and they had these huge windows behind the pulpit, and it stared right into one of the huge mountains there in that part of
Sure.
Wyoming. You pull up in the yard, and there'd be mule deer feeding
Wow.
through the yard. Go in the church, you sit down, sun shining, beautiful view out that window.
Wow.
And, bald eagle comes swooping by. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful place. And they had some dormitories that slept a bunch of people.
Yeah, they used to have a camp meeting out
They
there.
did.
His brother, DC,
Right.
started that church. And DC was under our ministry for a while at Safe Harbor.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've heard many stories of
Yeah,
camp
it
meetings.
was beautiful.
Yeah, and so.
I know Daniel Buchanan used to go out there a lot.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
The Harrisons, they used to go out there a
Yeah,
lot.
I think Brother Ralph. 'Cause
Yeah,
Brother Ralph used to go out there.
Yeah.
And
So it was, I think probably Brother Terry Dietz had gone out there. at one
probably Greg Lentz years
Yeah,
ago was
Greg
out there.
go.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of folks that went out there and was a part of that meeting.
Yes, sir. They
And
really
it is
ministered
in
to a
the
lot of
middle of
people out there in the
Now,
West.
did they go to preach or did they go to hunt mule deer?
It was a preaching meeting.
Sound like a good place to hunt.
It was a great place to hunt. I mean, a great place to hunt. And of course, all of Wyoming is a great place to hunt. I've
Beautiful.
killed some
Beautiful country.
nice deer and elk there. It's just a good and beautiful country. Beautiful, beautiful country. I was actually out there, and you'll like this story. So I was out there and preaching for a guy, and he said, "I want to take you and show you something one day." And so I got my boys in the van. We rode out there. We turned down this driveway. Well, it was a driveway. Probably took us 45 minutes to an hour on the driveway to get out to where we still didn't make it to the house. And when we got out there, there was just a weird looking dig going on inside the desert. Mm-hmm. And it would come down and go out and just step down, and there was nobody there. So we got out and began to walk around in that dig, and there was this huge mammoth tusk laying in there that was probably 10, 12 foot long.
Wow.
Laying in there that they were doing this archaeological dig and uncovering dinosaur stuff.
Oh, wow.
And we got to take pictures, and there was nobody there, so I broke off part of it, took it home with me.
And it's hanging right here on the
But it was quite a unique. I love the West, though.
You
It's
see a lot of that out west, like the long driveways, and you wonder how long that is. As you're driving
Absolutely.
by on the main highway, you see it's like such a ranch, and then it's like a lane. It's like you never see anything.
There was a friend of mine that was a contractor out there, and he was building he was hired on as a contractor on a particular house that was being built out there. The guy that owned it was a .com billionaire. He bought 100,000 acres in Wyoming, and his driveway was 23 miles.
Wow.
And he paved the whole thing and had it lined. And he had like a $28 million house and had like a $10 million horse barn, and
That's a long way to go check the mail.
Yeah, it's a long way to check the mail.
I hate to be that paper boy.
Yeah, that's right. I want to build me an airstrip and fly into town. Is what I'm going to do.
That
if
paper
I've got
boy
that
throw a
kind of-
paper that long, sign him
Yeah.
up for the Braves.
Yeah, that's
Put him in the
exactly
bullpen.
right. But it's a different world.
Oh, yeah.
out west. It really.
Yes, sir.
And people's people out west. Somebody asked me about people out west. I said they're kind of like Yankee folk, but they got that type of personality, and they're kind of standoffish type people.
Sure.
Not unkind,
Right.
Just standoffish. And but once you get to know them, they warm up to you, and it's a different world.
Yeah,
I
we've,
love it.
We've drove all throughout there. The state I did not enjoy driving through was Kansas.
Oh,
If you've never been to Kansas,
Nebraska.
we can actually show you a little bit of what Kansas is. If you'll just close your eyes, that's Kansas. That's what it is. Like right there. You don't see nothing.
I rode from one side of Nebraska to the other during corn season.
I did that last year.
And you can see the road come together out there, and you're like, "Oh, this is purgatory."
In
This has
Kansas,
got-
It's
you can
like
see-
all the way down through
Yeah.
there, and nothing, you see nothing but a barn once in a while and a cornfield.
In
Yeah.
Kansas, you can see your dog run away for 3 days. So flat.
but I tell you, the beauty of the interstate system, the speed limit was like 90 miles an hour.
That is a
Wow.
blessing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did enjoy that until a deer jumps out in front of you at 90 miles an hour. And it's
The deer was going 9 miles an hour?
Yes, it was once I hit it.
For a little ways he
Yeah,
was.
at least for a little way.
Wow.
Hey, I didn't even introduce T House.
That's all right.
This is Travis Howard, and a friend of ours, and watches the podcast. We're going to say he does, whether he does or he doesn't. And
promotion.
pastors over in right outside of Walkertown. What's the community called?
Walnut Cove.
Walnut Cove, North Carolina. And you've been the pastor of the No Hope Baptist Church for how long?
About 11 years. For 11 years. You asked the right ones. That's what they'll tell you. No hope. But yeah, I've been there for 11 years. We went there in June of
New Hope.
2011.
New Hope Baptist Church.
New Hope.
Now, that was the church that Gary Blaylock had pastored at
He
one time.
was.
So, now how old is New Hope?
I was, it's early 60s, mid 60s.
An old church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Galilee was started in 74 by Ronnie Simpson.
Right.
And it's had 3 pastors in that amount of time, and God's blessed the church down through the years. How many pastors has New Hope had? A good handful?
I think I'm either number 6 or 7. I got a list at home.
But that ain't,
That's
I
still
mean,
not
that's
bad.
not
But
bad
it's,
for
and I
it being
think it
that
started
old.
in either 62 or 63. Started in a little building, and then a family gave them some land, so they built.
So
the
it's close
building.
to 70
So
years old.
Yeah.
I mean, and has had,
you do the math.
yeah, well, it's over
That's
60.
homeschooled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right at
62
60.
years old, 63 years old, so it's pushing
But God's blessed it.
towards 70.
in spite of some of what's been happening.
Some of the pastors that have been there.
But including
Including
the
one on the
present.
table. Yeah.
Present company included.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, God has a way of,
First time I ever preached at New
helping
Hope,
us. Yeah.
we got done with the service. We were getting ready to go eat, and they're out in the parking lot tasing one another. Had them little stun guns. Remember
I
that?
wasn't involved. That was.
You weren't involved.
It was church.
It was our security.
You remember?
Yeah, I do. They were.
It's our
there were some
security
people there
team.
that- They would do that.
Our security
Well,
team was
the
practicing.
same people would stand out. It was a daughter and her dad, and they would just stand there and slug each other and just punch each other. And I'd be like, man, don't get too close to them.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore. So.
Yeah.
What a fellowship!
And
what a joy divine.
That's what the podcast
I mean, they did
is
it
about.
in love. I mean, they wasn't mad at each other.
Yeah.
They just.
I'm gonna love to tase
Watch
you.
how bad this hurts. I was like, please don't.
And that's a great segue into our into our podcast for the day, which is dealing with special needs children.
That's what you call them segues that you ride on at the
that you
mall.
ride around on the mall. So we were going to talk about, seriously now, we're
Yes.
talking about the subject of special needs children in the church and how to handle special needs children in the church. And, there's, if your church is going to be a church of outreach and you're going to grow, you're going to come across families that love the Lord, need a church to attend, and they've got a special needs child, and not every church is accommodating toward that.
That's right.
And so, that being said, you need to determine as a pastor, whether or not your church is going to do what they can to minister in a situation like that. And so we came on to just kind of give a few little pointers in regard to that. And I know that, of course, you don't have special needs children in regard to mental and physical development, but you and your wife are the parents of twins, which is
Special need.
Yeah, you are the special need, right? You and your wife are special needs people, but that is a different dynamic altogether.
Very much.
Your daughter was born, okay, so you had one child and doted on one child, and then the set of twins come along. How much different has that been?
Very.
And
What's the age gap?
About 2 years, 2.5 years between them.
So you got a
So-
2-year-old and then a set of twins.
Yeah.
God
No.
bless.
My daughter's 4. She'll be 5 next month. But she was 2 when they were born.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So there's
So we had, she was our only child, and to be honest, we thought she probably was going to be our only child, and then all of a sudden, boom, and then all of a sudden, it was boom, boom. And we was like, okay, this is a blessing, but it's a lesson.
Yeah, it's a blessing, but it's a lesson.
So
yeah,
That's a good quote.
We come home and we find out that the little girl that had all our attention, now she's kind of deprived because it takes both of us to take care of the boys, and so that's a challenge to try to give her the attention she needs. So there's a challenge there. And then,
Now, how different are the personalities of the twins? Are they
very.
really?
Yeah, they are. They'll look a lot alike, and then you talk to them, and there's certain things they
Are
like.
they identical?
They're not identical. When they were first born, a lot of people thought they were, but they're not. And the older they get, the more you can, I guess, distinguish and pick up the distinct characteristics. But
They're how old now? Did you say?
they're 2.5.
Gotcha.
And so, but as far as personality, Merrick is just wide open into anything, climb. He'll come. If he walked in here, he'd jump up on your lap, talk to you, hit you, play with you, talk to you. He's not scared of anything or anybody. Maverick, on the flip side, if he walked in here and I said, talk to Brother Andy, he would kind of shy away and duck his head until he gets to know you. Once he gets to know you, he's fine, but he's a little bit more on the reserved, I guess.
Was that kind of a surprise to you, not having twins?
I didn't know.
That they weren't exactly alike.
I didn't
in
know exactly
personality?
what to expect. My dad was a twin, so but really, him and his brother, they're like identical, and they're
In every way.
everything.
That's why I'm saying.
So
did you expect
when
them to be the same
I
with
didn't
these
know, I
children?
really didn't know what to expect. To be honest with you,
Right.
And
My dad's an identical twin.
yeah,
And
I remember that.
Yeah, so it kind of skips a generation. So
Yeah.
thankfully,
Yes.
yeah.
So I love them both. We have a great time. They love each other.
What's that?
You said it skips a generation. Thankfully, it didn't skip them.
No, yeah, they got the twins. We're good with what we got.
It skipped you.
It skipped us.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were meaning it always skips the next generation.
No, but can you imagine if there were 2 Travis Howards in the world?
What a well, I don't know.
I mean, no, I can't imagine that.
I think what he's saying
I
is
think I'm a
he's
little
not a
confused.
twin. I'm not a twin, but my child.
And I'm thankful that he had the twins.
Yeah, I got that part.
Okay. then I don't know. Then I don't know what we're talking
then
about.
You said, wouldn't it be bad
What's
to
this
have
episode about? No.
about special needs Joshes is what it's about. So you said, wouldn't it be bad if there were 2 Travis Howards in the world, right?
I agree with that statement.
Yeah. I can't even stand one Travis Howard in the world. 2 Travis Howards in the world.
And that is my wife's seat right there. That's where
Yes,
Dr.
my
My
Howards
wife,
actually sits.
might argue with that.
Would she?
I don't know.
Does she
She's probably happy with just
does
one.
she really
She
know?
might want to. Like
she really
well,
want
she's like
to?
one that she likes to do this, and one she likes to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, if she's like my wife,
do all
she
the
won't
things
even
that this
see
Travis Howard doesn't do, or something.
If she's like my wife, she won't even see this. So
That's probably
It's very likely.
Yeah.
That is very
Very,
accurate.
very.
So you have a special needs son,
yes, sir.
and his name
Seitler.
Seitler.
After Dr. Seitler.
after Dr. Harold B. Seitler.
Yes, sir.
So talk to us a little bit about, when I first met you, and I didn't know you had a special needs child, and you had Seitler, and I've gotten to know Seitler a little bit since that point in time.
Sure.
And he was very little at the time. And I had no inkling of an idea, and I'm thinking, does Josh even know what he's doing as a parent? I mean, because I didn't know.
Right.
And surely you have caught that from people in church
Yes,
and
sir.
in public. So tell me, if people don't know, how should they respond or handle, or what should the
Right.
church do?
So,
because I think that's a fair thing.
In context to that, I think it's when you came and preached for us. You said some things. I don't even remember. I remember this. We was at the Outback Restaurant for service one night, and you ministered to me and my wife and didn't even know it, because we didn't even know. Sight was so little, we didn't know, because obviously we discipline our children.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. I've had men say, "Well, I could do it and make it work." I'm just telling you.
No, I get you. I get you.
And so you said some things that night, not even knowing it, that ministered to me and my wife and helped us. So we started saying some things with Seitler. His speech he was not talking at the right age, things of that nature. So tests, going to see doctors. He is on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
He is not. There are some autistic children that cannot speak. Some cannot have. I have a friend of mine that he has an autistic grandson that they have to have. He has a special needs dog that helps him. This dog can sense when he's going to have a seizure or anything like that and assist. My little boy is not to that extreme, but he does have some issues. One of the issues he has is, for some reason, certain tones in music. I actually talked to a sound man recently about that. Certain tones in music. Give me an example. I can play a CD in my truck that has been in a professional studio recorded. Doesn't bother him. But if I was to record sitting in a service somewhere and hear a song that I like, and hey, I want to learn that, and I'll maybe pick up my phone to record it. If I was to play that with all that static, he can't handle it. He'll put his hands over his ears. So eventually we thought maybe he has a hearing problem, got his hearing tested. His hearing's fine. So it's on that autism spectrum. So you're talking about people not, how to respond. I was preaching a meeting in another state, and I was holding Seitler, and a man walked up to me and spoke to him, and he didn't respond. And he said, I said, yeah. I said, he has some difficulties. He said, well, I can fix those difficulties.
Wow.
Well, before I knew it, I said, no, you couldn't, because I saw how you cowered down when your wife walked up. And I told I put my kid family in the car that night after the meeting, and I said, we don't need a meeting this bad. And so I have gone back and preached in that meeting, but I don't take my family. Yeah. Because I'm not putting up with that.
Right. Was that a preacher?
No, it was not a preacher. If it was a preacher, it'd have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah. I understand.
And since then, that brother's kind of understood
the
situation. But the advice I would give, not every kid you see is a brat.
Right.
Now, I can tell when Seitler is having some issues with his autism, and then I can tell when he's just being a 6-year-old boy.
Right. And
the only ones that know that are the ones that are with that child day in and day out.
Right.
God has, at our church, we've got, of course, Seitler. We've got another young man in our church that has Asperger's. And so whenever, and I'll say this, when I see a child out in public that I can tell has special needs, my heart immediately goes out to the parents.
Sure.
Because they don't know.
Yes. Do you find it easier to recognize that in children because of dealing with Seitler every day?
I'm not saying I can look at a kid's face, but there are some things I see. My wife, I can tell.
Signs.
I can't tell you how many times we've been in a meeting somewhere, and my wife get in the car and said that little girl or that little boy. She says, "I see Seitler." I said, "You can just see certain things they do, certain ways they respond to things." Now, to God be the glory, Seitler for 2 years he didn't sit in a church service.
Right.
He sat in my office. Now he's not a typical Baptist. He don't like singing.
Yeah.
But when the preaching starts, he will come get his Bible and sit on the front row. So he's not a typical Baptist. He don't like the singing. He wants preaching.
Right.
He loves church. He's got little things. He loves to vacuum the church. He's 6 years old. And he does an excellent job. We're going to put him on staff. But there's just certain things, whatever he's good at, like you said about your grandson, he's smart as a whip.
Yeah.
I mean, he's brilliant. He has a memory on directions. Like I preach Brother Davy Shelton twice a year. I preach in their Jubilee and I preach a revival for him. We've been there so much that when I'm going down 85 South, he knows the exit of Brother Davy's church.
By number or just the site?
Location, site. His memory is unreal.
Is it that he feels it or he sees it?
He sees it. he'll say, where we go? He said, that's Brother Davy Shelton's. And so there are a lot of things that he excels at. And there are some difficulties that he has. You know, one of the things we're working on right now is education, how to educate him, teach him. And so you just kind of have to roll with what you got. There has been times to where in the morning he didn't want to do his schoolwork, but at 9:30 at night, getting ready for bed, he sees as a 6-year-old boy, I don't want to go to bed. I want to do my school. Well, what I've done at 9:30 at night, I've sat on the floor and done his schoolwork with him. You just kind of got to work with him and bring him along. And I think about that man in John 9 who was born blind.
Yeah.
And them disciples said, who has sinned?
Yeah.
And Jesus said, ain't nobody sinned.
Him or his parents.
Yeah, said, he ain't sinned. It's for the glory of God.
Right.
And so I would say to the parents that have a special need child, it's not your fault. God ain't judging you.
Now, he is, the older Sattler gets, he's developing the sense of knowing right and wrong.
He is.
So there's going to come a day, even though he has special needs, and although he's going to deal with this the rest of his life to some degree, there'll be some maturity that helps that. But he's going to need to come to faith in Christ.
Yes, sir. And I'll be honest with you, that's something that has kept me awake many nights. How am I going to minister the gospel to him? How is he going to understand? And I'll tell you what the Lord done for me, Brother Andy. We was riding down the road one day, and I was thinking about those things, and I heard Sattler in the back. And he said, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he'll not depart. What he does, Sattler loves preaching, and he'll get my iPad, he'll watch Brother Davy Shelton, but he'll watch me. And he watches things on loop constantly. There's a part of something he likes, he'll go back and watch it again, go back and watch it again. And he was watching me read my text and memorize the scripture from watching that. And it's like God spoke to my heart and said, that word's getting in him.
Yes.
Sure.
And God,
and that's what's going to make the difference.
That's exactly right. In all of our children.
And it's not about me having the ability to sell my child on the gospel.
That's exactly right.
It is putting the Word of God in them and letting the seed of the Word of God do its job.
Yes, sir. And I would say this, and I'd say this, our church is so loving, so understanding, so kind with Sattler.
Good.
It's not like that everywhere.
Right.
And so as a pastor, I would say you need to train your people. If you have a family coming with special needs, they don't need to be a bless God, I can fix that trip.
Right.
It needs to be compassionate. Sattler knows when he's doing something wrong. He has an idea of right and wrong.
Right.
We correct that. But if he's sitting over there humming with his hands over his ears, I know this is a legitimate episode that he's having, and correcting is not going to do anything.
Even the vast majority of special needs today isn't Down syndrome where there is an obvious, aesthetical look that shows we're dealing with a problem.
Sure.
A lot of the issues now are neurological.
Yes, sir.
And the neurological issues that children are dealing with in the brain do not show any outward physical signs until the episode begins.
Right.
And it's easy to misunderstand.
Yes,
so
sir.
do you feel a necessity to explain to people?
I have. I have been in some places where my family don't get to travel with me as much anymore.
Right.
But where, like, my oldest boy Dax, he'll be sitting on the front row, and my wife, she'll be out with Sattler somewhere, and I'll say, I'm introducing my family, and I'll say, my little boy, he's got some special needs, and I'll mention that because some people go, he's just a brat, and he can be a brat.
Right.
He's a boy. He's all boy, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
But he's got other difficulties. And here's what I've watched God do. My wife has carried the burden more than I. Not saying that I haven't, but she carries it. But I have watched God give her grace to minister to other ladies. I was in a meeting not long ago, and a lady had just got, a little boy that got diagnosed with autism. And I watched my wife stand there and talk to that mother and minister to her. And so God's turning that and allowing her to minister, even though it's not fun to deal with. And sometimes it's difficult. There's times we couldn't eat in a restaurant. He couldn't handle that. But you just grow and you just do what you have to.
Right.
And so to you parents have special needs children, just do what you can. Honor God. Correct what needs to be correcting. But then have a little patience and guidance. And God will end up teaching you some things.
Amen. Well, remember these things. And from us to you, you keep pressing on the upward way. See you next week.